The tunnel leading out to the 1974 World Cup final was narrow and grim. On his shoulders rested not just the number 7 orange jersey, but the entire hope of the Dutch nation. Hendrik Johannes Cruyff paused as he took his final steps toward the pitch. His gaze settled neither on the massive crowd ahead nor the stern faces of the West German players opposite him. His mind was elsewhere, tracing the damp, narrow streets of impoverished Amsterdam. This moment was his pinnacle, yet this epic tale began not at the summit, but in the shadow of a football shrine. He was a 27-year-old genius, a revolutionary who rewrote football's rules in his own mind. But the seeds of this revolution were sown in the late 1950s, alongside his mother in the stadium's laundry room, Amsterdam, 1950s. De Meer Stadium, Ajax's hallowed ground, was Johan's home, literally. Their house shared walls that hummed with the noise and excitement of the stadium. When his father died young, Johan's world fractured. His mother, struggling to support the family, took jobs as a cleaning lady and laundress at the stadium. For Johan, Ajax was no longer just a club. The sacred space, accessed through his mother, became both his sanctuary and his playground. The club building was his nursery, the green pitch his grandest dream. He was always weak and slender compared to his peers. Yet, when the ball touched him, he proved football was not a physical contest but an intellectual game of chess. While other children only controlled the ball with their feet, Johan commanded it with his mind. Every touch, every feint, possessed a flawless geometry, planned seconds in advance. This unique talent quickly shone in the youth teams. But Ajax at the time was only a local force, far from Europe's elite. The club needed to rediscover its identity, and the name of that transformation would be Rinus Michels. When Michels took charge in 1965, he imposed a military discipline on the club. He was a strict, uncompromising commander who pushed the limits of professionalism. The genius he sought, however, was hidden in this skinny, chain-smoking, rebellious 17-year-old. Cruyff often clashed with Michels's physical demands. The training was grueling, the rules rigid. But Michels knew that Cruyff's ability to read the game would compensate for any physical shortcomings. "They always told me I wasn't strong enough," Johan would later recount. "But I knew that if I got to the ball before my opponent, I wouldn't need strength. If you have the ball, the opposition cannot score. It is that simple." This philosophy was the first seed of the revolution called total football. November 28, 1965. Just weeks after returning from injury, Johan took the field for the senior team against arch-rivals Feyenoord. He scored a goal. This goal was more than just a victory. It was a manifesto declaring that this 18-year-old was the future of Dutch football. The press gave him a nickname, Het Fenomeen, the phenomenon. Michels and Cruyff formed a perfect partnership. The commander's discipline and the genius's vision merged. Total football came to life within Michels's rigid structure, animated by Cruyff's fluid genius. The system was simple, positions were fixed, but roles were not. Every player could interchange positions based on the momentary situation. The left back would cover the center forward's position if necessary. Cruyff, despite being a number 9 striker, would often drop into midfield or even defense to initiate play. This meant 11 players acting not as separate parts, but as a single, fluid organism. The late 1960s and early 1970s were marked by Ajax's epic rise. First the Dutch League, then Europe. They won the European Cup in 1971 and repeated the victory in 1972 and 1973. Ajax sat at the top of Europe 3 times in a row. Cruyff was no longer just a player. He was the coach on the field, the living proof of the philosophy. He changed the world not with his goals, but with the way he saw the game. That be why the summer of 1973, at the age of 26, Cruyff was a legend. But internal club tensions and the vote where his teammates unexpectedly stripped him of the captaincy alienated him from Ajax. His own home, his own family had turned their backs. Holland felt too small. 2 major clubs wanted him, Real Madrid, the symbol of the dictator Franco's regime, and FC Barcelona, the symbol of Catalan identity and resistance. Cruyff's choice was not merely sporting, it was a political and cultural statement. "I couldn't play for a fascist club," he is rumored to have said. He chose Barcelona. The transfer not only broke the record for the most expensive player in Europe but also ignited a massive spark of hope for the Catalan people. By naming his newborn son Jordi, after Catalonia's patron saint, Sant Jordi, at a time when the Franco regime suppressed Catalan names, he won the hearts of the public from day one. It was a courageous political stance. Barcelona was in a dire state. They hadn't won the league title in 14 years, and morale was shattered. Cruyff joined the team in October 1973. He immediately began a revolution of the mindset, not just tactics. He taught the players not just to run, but to think. Following his mantra, "Football is simple, but it is difficult to play simple," he transformed Barcelona's passive, defensive style into the fluid, attacking structure of total football he brought from Ajax. On the field, he managed the chaos he created. Despite being signed as a number 9 striker, he often dropped back into midfield, pushed the defenders forward, and dismantled the opponent's defensive organization. This fluidity was unprecedented in Spanish football. In the winter of 1974, all of Spain focused on one match, El Clásico. Barcelona, playing at the Santiago Bernabéu against arch-rivals Real Madrid, the heart of the Franco regime. The tension was not just about football, it was the moment 14 years of Catalan resentment against central authority would explode. The match turned into a masterclass rather than a contest. Barcelona, led by Cruyff, displayed the finest moments of total football. Possession dominance, continuous positional changes, and suffocating pressure. Cruyff finished the game with 2 goals and 3 assists. The final score, Real Madrid 0, Barcelona 5. This 5-0 victory was more than a scoreline. For the Catalan people, it became the symbol of a political triumph. Cruyff delivered Barcelona its first league championship in 14 years. That year, total football conquered Spain, and Cruyff won his 3rd Ballon d'Or. But every story at the peak has a tragedy. That same year, in the 1974 World Cup final, Cruyff captained the Netherlands, showcasing the purest, most destructive form of total football. They crushed giants like Brazil and Argentina. Everyone was certain Cruyff's Netherlands would lift the cup. In the final, they faced West Germany. The match began with the Cruyff turn, the famous feint where Cruyff collected the ball, turned 180 degrees, and left his marker standing. Within seconds of the initial whistle, they won a penalty and led 1-0. Yet, this early triumph was their undoing. Holland played with an arrogance that turned the revolutionary fervor into overconfidence. Germany was disciplined, cold, and ruthless. They won the match 2-1. Cruyff had changed football forever but failed to win the world's biggest prize. The silence in the tunnel was the echo of a revolution lost. Cruyff did not participate in the 1978 World Cup. He left football at its peak, but his legacy was far from over. After briefly playing in the US following his retirement in 1978, Cruyff returned to his home, Ajax, as head coach in 1985. This second spell at Ajax became the laboratory of his coaching career. He took the total football fluidity he created as a player and managed it from the sideline. He prioritized young talents, centering the team around names like Frank Rijkaard, Marco van Basten, and Dennis Bergkamp. He commanded them not just to play, but to think. "I don't tell players what to do. I tell them the 3 or 4 options they have in 20 seconds. They make the decision," was his mantra. Cruyff proved his revolutionary coaching by leading Ajax to the 1987 Cup Winners' Cup. However, political and financial disputes soon surfaced, and he departed in 1988. In 1988, Johan Cruyff returned to his former love and scene of drama, FC Barcelona, this time as head coach. The club was again in crisis. Cruyff immediately initiated a complete overhaul, building a structure that would change football forever over the next 14 years. He focused on rebuilding the entire club, not just the team. His philosophy was simple. If you were going to play for the first team, you had to already know the Barcelona way. This marked the beginning of his radical influence on La Masia, the club's youth academy. Cruyff instilled the 3-4-3 formation deep into the heart of Catalonia. It was a risky, attack-minded formation that took opponents' breath away. This squad quickly became known as the Dream Team, filled with stars like Pep Guardiola, his brain on the field, Michael Laudrup, Risto Stoichkov, and Ronald Koeman. The Dream Team won 4 consecutive Spanish league titles from 1991 to 1994. The zenith of Cruyff's coaching career came in 1992. Barcelona had the chance to win the European Cup, now the Champions League, for the first time in their history. The final was played at Wembley Stadium in London against Italian giant Sampdoria. The match went into extra time. In the 112th minute, Ronald Koeman's free kick found the back of the net. Barcelona was at the pinnacle of Europe. This victory was more than just a trophy. It was the triumph of Cruyff's football philosophy. Total football was now both a style of play and a winning method. His dream team, with its emphasis on passing, possession, and continuous movement, laid the foundations for modern football. Cruyff's greatest legacy was left not on the pitch, but behind it, La Masia. Cruyff's most radical decision was to mandate that all youth teams at La Masia adopt the 3-4-3 formation and philosophy used by the senior team. His goal was that when a young player reached the first team, they would already know the system and the philosophy. "I never bought the best player at La Masia. I took the best decision-maker," he famously said. This philosophy formed the basis of the system that would later produce some of football history's greatest geniuses, such as Xavi, Iniesta, and Lionel Messi. Cruyff mentored Pep Guardiola with this philosophy, and Guardiola, in turn, carried both La Masia and Cruyff's ideas to the peak, initiating the tiki-taka era, Barcelona's most successful period in history. In 1996, Cruyff departed Barcelona. In 8 years, he won 11 trophies, the most successful period in the club's history up to that point. He was no longer just a player, coach, or manager. He was a philosophy, encoded into the DNA of Ajax, Barcelona, and, indirectly, all of modern football. Johan Cruyff passed away in 2016. But his legacy lives on in every pass, every fluid attack, and every moment the game is played intelligently, with the number 14 jersey remaining not just a number, but an immortal symbol reminding us that football is a game of the mind.